This is Story Saloon, short stories centre stage. I'm Jane Messer. In this episode, we're going to hear Clatter Tongue by K.A. Ren Wyld from our October 7 show. To begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners and first storytellers of the land on which we're broadcasting. Wyld's story was performed and produced for podcast on the lands of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I pay my respects to elders past and present and acknowledge their enduring connection to this country. Ren Wyld is a South Australian writer of Martu descent. They've written an inspired short story which combines realism with the fantastic. In it, a young Treanna finds herself struggling to speak. Instead of words, other things come out. The story is about how her Aboriginal voice is profoundly linked to missing family and histories that can't be ignored. Ren Wyld has written and published multiple works about Indigenous experiences and history. This prize-winning story is from the collection This All Come Back Now, an anthology of First Nations speculative fiction, edited by Michaela Saunders. Reading Clatter Tongue is Katie Beckett, a celebrated Murri actor and writer whose stage and screen work brings both artistry and cultural resonance to this prize-winning story. And now, here is Katie Beckett reading Clatter Tongue.
Clatter Tongue by Ren Wyld.
Treanna walked past the young couple waiting in the patchy shade of a tree and stood beside the bus sign.
Stop 25. Same number as her grandparents' old place before Pop died and Nana moved in with Auntie Sissy. Same number minus a week as her brother's age when he died. Accident, they said. He shouldn't have resisted, they'd reiterated at the inquest. Thinking of Buddy, she twisted the stretchy red, yellow and black band on her left wrist. Want one? Treanna turned and saw an older guy, perhaps mid-30s, greasy blonde hair framing a flasky sunburnt face. He held out a crashed pack of cigarettes. She shook her head. He looked her over, smirking. She turned away, willing for the bus to arrive. She glanced at the couple under the tree and noticed they were in deep conversation. She wondered whether they'd even bother to look her way if she needed help. From the drift of smoke, she knew the stranger was a few steps behind her. She touched her bracelet again. Treanna's teacher, Mrs. Ford, constantly told her off for fidgeting with it, not realising the bracelet helped Treanna feel less anxious. It had briefly belonged to Buddy, her older brother. He'd gotten it at a protest to save the river. Treanna had wanted to go with him that day, but their mum said no and promised to take her to the next one. The cops came looking for Buddy the day after the protest. Pop handed Treanna the bracelet at the funeral. She'd been inconsolable when she heard Buddy wasn't ever coming home. She wailed so loud that the moths flew in and nestled deep in her stomach. She didn't cry when Pop died a few months later. She kept her mouth closed, lest something else decided to join those moths. You're not so bad on the eyes. Suppressing a shiver, she hoped the stranger would not move closer. She looked at the couple. They appeared to be quietly arguing. She stiffened her back, planning which way to run. The moths in her stomach tumbled left and then right. Treanna kept her head down, hoping he'd leave her alone. She decided right was the best direction to make her escape. If she ran past the tree, the couple might step in. If not, she'd keep running. He was much faster than she anticipated. He grabbed her shoulder and swung her around. It hurt, but Treanna never even blinked. She looked him in the eye, calmly priming her saliva. She planned on spitting it in his right eye, The left one was half closed, with a faint purple-blue mark above the brow. He relaxed his grip on her shoulders slightly. Treanna couldn't reach the tricoloured band on her wrist. Her breathing increased, becoming more erratic. The moths were in such a frenzied flurry that she felt like vomiting. Treanna took a deep breath and tried to picture Pop. She remembered him sharing stories while fishing down at the bend in the river. Pop had been a quiet man, preferring the companies of chickens. Get him in the right mood, he'll tell you a yarn or two. Treanna's mum had often remarked how she reminded her of Pop. Buddy had been more like their dad, had been gone so long that Treanna could barely remember what he looked like. They had put Dad to rest with the view of the river on country. Always was, always will be, Aboriginal land. Buddy taught her that chant. Pop hadn't been too keen on chants or protests, not even when the fish started to die and the river almost stopped flowing. Those days are over, he patiently told Buddy. Pop believed there were other ways to push for justice and rights, to protect country. Buddy had disagreed. Treanna wondered what Pop would do if he was still here. She knew what Buddy would do. However, she was just a girl. Closing her eyes, she saw a tall woman, feet planted firmly on the ground, hands on hips, chin held high. Treanna watched in horror as the invaders rushed into the river camp. The woman did not move. Shouts, screams, bare running feet, running, still the woman stood her ground. "Stop ignoring me," said the stranger. Treanna opened her eyes and blinked. Then she opened her mouth and outpoured not words. With a loud clang, a lance fell to the ground. They both stared at it, confused. He released her abruptly and stepped back. She opened her mouth again, and the blunderbuss fell out. Then a dagger with a chipped handle, followed by a small, short-handled pistol. Clatter, clang, clink, clang. More weaponry fell from her mouth. Soon, a pile of rusted metal, many pieces of bone and wooden handles reached to her knees. Then, a single moth escaped. She watched it fly over the heads of the nearby couple and settle into the tree. The couple was still arguing, oblivious to what happened just a few steps away. Treanna put both hands over her mouth. "That's old British armoury, that is," the stranger said. "Where'd you nick it from?" She looked at him, then back at the heap of metal at her feet. He growled and gave a rifle a kick. It made a rattling noise before resettling back in the stack. They both looked up as the bus arrived. The door made a loud whooshing sound as it opened. "You getting on, love?" the driver asked her before turning his attention to the man. "Told you before, I won't have any trouble on this bus." The man swore at the driver before walking away. Treanna jumped on the bus, suddenly feeling lighter. As the bus moved away from the curb, she looked out the window. The pile of weapons had vanished. Mrs. Ford and Mr. Blythe, the principal, had been talking in the corridor for 10 minutes or more. They had not closed the door entirely, and from the inside of the classroom their words sounded muffled. Treanna got out of her seat and stood near the door. Some of the children giggled. Others urged her to be careful. Treanna heard the principal and the teacher discussing if it would be better for her mother to keep her at home for the sake of the other students. Treanna twisted her band as she listened. She wanted to stay in school. She had big dreams for her future. She promised Pop to work hard and make those dreams come true. It was the moths. They wouldn't let her speak. Treanna occasionally suspected the moths were protecting her by silencing her. Buddy had been outspoken. She flew back to her desk as the door opened wide. "What were you doing away from your desk? Were you snooping?" She kept her eyes lowered as Mrs. Ford approached. The steel ruler made a loud thud as it hit her desk. Treanna looked away, pulling at her bracelet as she tried to control her breathing. Mrs. Ford walked to her desk and quickly scribbled on a piece of paper. "Go to the principal's office and take this note," she said. A few minutes later, Treanna knocked on the principal's door. Mr. Blythe opened the door and raised his eyebrow when he saw her. She handed over Mrs. Ford's note. He read it slowly, then peered at Treanna over the top of his steel-rimmed glasses. "Eavesdropping is not acceptable behaviour. Didn't your parents teach you any manners? I don't know why we even bother trying to educate your type." She caught a glimpse of the thin rod leaning against the wall. She had not seen it before, but she had heard it many times. The sound of the wood hitting flesh always made her jump. She would nod in solidarity at both the teary-eyed and the defiant as they left the principal's office. As Mr. Blythe reached for the rod, Treanna knew it was her turn to be defiant. "So what do you have to say for yourself?" Standing tall, Treanna opened her mouth and out tumbled a bundle of leather-bound notebooks. Next came loose papers, telegrams, handwritten memos, then mission reports, words on yellowed paper, papers scribbled with numbers, tear-stained letters from hopeful parents. They all fluttered to the floor. Moths rode on the papers before flying out the open window. She then noticed a small child in the pile of papers. Treanna raised her finger to her lips. "Don't make a sound, bub." As Mr. Blythe stared in disbelief at the unexplainable mess on his floor, Treanna let herself out. She knew those papers would vanish soon, along with the memory of a stolen child. Treanna's mum kept her home the next day, and the next. She was tired. Dark rings had formed under her eyes. Bad dreams kept her up at night. She knew, in addition to the bothersome moths, reading books she'd taken from Buddy's room had filled those dreams. Massacres, dying rivers, dead fish, bones. So many bones. Not easy reading, but she knew she had still much to learn. These books were not like the history books in her school. They were full of truths. Despite differing views, one thing Pop and Buddy had always agreed on was truth-telling. It's a pathway to reasserting sovereignty. On the third day of being home, Mum rang Auntie Sissy, who brought Nana straight over. Treanna could hear them talking in the kitchen over a cup of tea. She smelled Auntie's scones and just knew they'd be eating them with Nana's apricot jam. She was too tired to even lift her head from the pillow. The moths seemed too exhausted to move. The bedroom door opened and Nana entered. Nana sat on the bed and gently stroked her hair. Treanna tried to sit up and realised she couldn't move a muscle. The weight of the moths pinned her down. Nana made a clicking sound with her tongue. "Those moths still bothering you?" The moths became agitated. Tears formed in Treanna's eyes. Nana took her granddaughter's hands and wrapped them with her own. A waft of emu bush curled around the room. The moths settled. "Buddy's been gone a while now. And your Pop? They'd not want you grieving still. Should I help you get rid of them moths?" Treanna nodded. She truly wanted them gone. She wanted to be able to sleep peacefully again, to finish her schoolwork without moths fussing. She had turned her plans into reality, even if Pop wasn't there to encourage her. Nana helped Treanna stand up, giving her time to steady before slowly leading her outside. Mum and Auntie were in the backyard. The warmth of the sun felt so good on Treanna's face, and a small fire had been lit in the middle of the lawn. The moths seemed scared of the flames, and they frantically beat their wings. Her mum stretched out her arms. When Treanna sunk into the softness of her mum's cardigan, the moths went quiet. Nana picked up a branch of emu bush, and with plenty of leaves still on it, and placed it gently on the fire. As the white-grey smoke thickened, the old lady beckoned. Treanna began to walk over. She took a few steps, then stopped. She buckled over in pain, opening her mouth again. A big moth flew out, and then a bone, followed by another. So many bones. They didn't hurt her, not even the sharp ones. Still, Treanna was scared. She felt strong arms wrap around her, holding her tight. The vomiting eased for a moment. Then she started retching up moths. They tickled her belly and throat. So many fluttering moths, leaving. Then Treanna straightened her back, feet firmly on the ground, chin held high. Treanna watched the last moth fly away towards the sun. When it was out of sight, all the bones had sunk into the ground. Nana led her to the fire, to the thick, aromatic smoke. Mum put a woven armband on Treanna. Emu feathers danced in the light breeze, tickling her upper arm. Treanna took off the rubber bracelet and threw it to the fire. Then she cupped her hands and drew the smoke closer. She breathed in and exhaled. The end.
The live readings for Story Saloon at the Vanguard were recorded by Martin Gallagher. Your host has been Jane Messer. A big thanks to the whole Story Saloon team.